Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description. Hello everybody. The car I am driving today, at a quick glance, might look like just about every other ordinary, everyday BMW that you've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. But this is in fact a very, very special car indeed, and one of the most important the firm has made this decade. For this, the i4 M50 is the first all-electric car to come from BMW's motorsport division. And so, this is the car that should give us a little preview of what lies in store for the future. A car then, it's incredibly important that they get right. And I am happy to tell you, unlike the Audi Q4 that I drove a few weeks ago, which was an unmitigated disaster, this is far more successful. It's a car so good, in fact, I'm considering buying one for myself. However, in order for the i4 M50 to make any sense at all, there are two truths that you must accept, and one of which, for any BMW fan, is going to be very, very difficult indeed. What am I talking about? Well, stay tuned to find out in today's episode of JayEmm on Cars. Now, just in case you're new to this channel, my name is James and I am a big BMW fan. I have in fact owned more BMWs than any other brand, with everything from an E46 330ci Club Sport through to the 130i, an old E36 track car, and the likes of the E46 M3 and even a supercharged E92, as well as oddities like a 645 along the way. I love my BMWs, but over the last 10 years, for me, they've kind of lost their way. Beautiful, naturally aspirated, high-revving engines have been binned in favour first of turbochargers and latterly hybrid and now full electric power. Their once beautiful, immaculately laid out and very well constructed interiors have been replaced by plasticky affairs with silly controls and gimmicks that nobody wants or needs. And perhaps most upsettingly, it's a company that has almost entirely lost its sense of style. You only need to look back as recently as 10 or 15 years ago to things like the then new M2, the M4, and the old E92 M3 to know that this is a company that I don't think very often makes beautiful cars, but certainly knows how to pen a handsome one. Latterly though, they've given up on that, and instead they've just decided to see just how much grille they can put on the front of a car and just what exactly it is that their customers are willing to put up with. Of course, the blame is often laid at the foot of China, with many saying, it's because BMW are building their cars to appeal to that market. But guess what? They're not built in China, at least this one isn't, and they're not just sold there either. Britain, I think, has always been a big market for BMW, but over the last 15 years or so, I've found myself falling out of love with the brand. But that's not to say it's all bad, because they have still made some absolute crackers. Even the recent M3 and M4, though it took me a while to gel with the looks, and they're still not as good as the old ones, they're great cars to drive. And with luck, maybe I could say the same about the new M2 as well, but thus far, I've not had the pleasure, nor sadly have I been able to try the new Z4, which I should have been in right now. You see, I got in touch with BMW UK earlier in the year, who I've never worked with before, and said, "Why haven't we worked together, lads?" And in short, they came back to me and said, "We don't know. Let's do something. What would you like?" So I said I'd like a Z4, and you know what? I'd like to try the i4, because this is an important car, this is a big deal, and this represents your more everyday BMW. Yes, M2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s and 8s are all well and good, but this is a more meat and potatoes car. But the spicy meat and potatoes. It's the patatas bravas of the BMW range. But anyway, you know what? This car does an awful lot right. First off, it's a saloon. Well, they call it a Grand Coupe, but it's a saloon, isn't it? Okay, it's got a kind of hatch at the back and a pretty decently sized boot, which is fortunate because up front, you'll find just about the most disappointing sight in the automotive kingdom. A large expanse of black plastic. But more than that, it's actually a relatively sensibly sized saloon. It is, in footprint terms, roughly similar to a 3 Series, which makes the naming a little bit odd because the 4 Series really is a coupe and then Grand Coupe. There isn't a straight up coupe of the i4, and I suspect the reason it isn't called the i3 is because they don't want you to confuse it with the old i3. Or remind you of the fact that 12 years ago, when BMW built their first ever electric car, they absolutely knocked it out the park, delivering easily one of the most innovative and technologically advanced production cars ever made. When have you seen, either before or after, a car sold in large quantities at that price point with a carbon fibre monocoque? That was an unbelievable thing for BMW to do. The i8, which joined it, okay, a hybrid, not full electric, was similarly futuristic and amazing. Even today, the i8 still looks utterly sensational. Though sadly, not that many people bought them. They sold quite well, but not well enough, and they certainly depreciated fairly hard. Those things in the first 6 months could lose up to 30 or 40% of their value. Painful. In a lot of ways, I think BMW simply paid the price for being early to market and bold with what they were trying. But I shall forever tip my hat to them for doing it in the first place. This is a far more conventional affair. There are a few different flavours of the i4. This one is the M50, or as I like to call it, the MSO, because that's what the badge on the back says to me. And what you get here is a now familiar combination of quite a lot of power and torque delivered via 2 motors to both ends of the car, what BMW call X-Drive, though in practice is likely different to the X-Drive in your 540i. This makes, are you ready, 540 horsepower and near as damn it 600 pounds-feet of torque. That's just shy of 800 newton meters. Although, as is ever the case, the performance numbers are blunted slightly by the fact this car tips the scales at 2.3 tons. Effectively the same then as a Porsche Taycan or an Audi e-tron GT. And the nature of electric power delivery means that in reality, EVs come in just one of 2 flavours. Those that are disappointingly slow, and those which are unbelievably face-meltingly quick. This is in the latter category. Put your foot down, and it'll do this. It's rapid, this thing. Seriously, stupidly rapid. Allow me to demonstrate exactly what it is I mean. I'll do my classic 30 to 60 test. So, we're down at 30 miles an hour now, and I'm going to put my foot down now. There's 40, there's 50, there's 60. This is a fast car. Although, once you have deployed the power, and you get 260 and a little bit beyond, you can feel there's not really a break in the acceleration, because that's not true at all, but it doesn't feel like it's building in the way that a traditional combustion engine car would. But that's okay, it's a different thing. For just about anybody, this should have all the power they would ever need and more. Impressively, it's doing that in spite of the fact it's not got massive tyres, just 255 section wide. On my old E46 M3, that would have struggled. This somehow, it just hasn't. And I'll admit, though I'm not really in love with the styling, nor do I find it particularly offensive. A bit like this Dravit grey colour, which has a kind of bronzy greeny flake to it. It's quite nice, but it's like an accountant turning up saying, "Hey, sim my new grey suit." "Yeah, Dave, looks like your last one." "No, it's different. Look the stitch. Nice one, Dave. Get back to work. Inside, then, it is fairly familiar to anybody that's been in a modern-day BMW, which in all honesty doesn't include me. I find myself getting very frustrated with the controls on the wheel because they never really do what I expect them to, but that's on me. I'm just used to those in other manufacturers' products. This does work, it does do the business, you've got more or less everything you need, though, as with every other car out there, this digital display in front of you, it's okay, but I don't think it really gives me any more information than the old setup of 2 analog displays and a digital one ever did. Happily, BMW still give you a proper old school physical control for your iDrive down here, in spite of the fact up here it is touch, though points are being deducted for the fact that the HVAC controls are also now digital. They work fairly well and they've done a good job in the time that I've had the car, but there is space here for proper controls, and I'd like to see that. BMW billing themselves, alright, not anymore, but once upon a time, as the ultimate driving machine, there are things I think that the keener driver appreciates, and physical proper controls, that's one of them. Another is the adaptive dampers, which mean that the car in comfort mode actually is comfortable. Now, I, like everybody, has this set to the individual mode, which you've got in both comfort and sport. There's even an individual for Eco Pro as well. That lets you control all sorts of random stuff. And as for customization and configuration, there is not a YouTube video I can make long enough to go through all of it. You can even set how loud the fan is when the thing is on charge, presumably so as not to upset your NIMBY neighbours. And I can't really blame BMW for the fact that lots of things that should have buttons don't, like for example turning off lane keep, although they have given you a hotkey and they tell you how to activate it to disable the speed limit warning. Thanks BMW. And on the subject of lane assist, it's intervened like once in the fortnight that I've had it, which is great. It's actually a very, very good system. The ADAS in this car, very, very unintrusive. I've actually really not been bothered by it at all. And so back to those settings. I have for my sport individual mode, the damper in comfort, the steering in sport, which as you might expect, just whitens it up a bit, and the drivetrain in sport boost. And that bit is quite significant because the first few days I had this car, I must admit I found the power not unimpressive, but perhaps a touch lacking, a little bit underwhelming, especially considering the numbers. And that's because the car will only make those peak numbers for about 10 seconds if you have the boost mode engaged, which you can do either by enabling it in your individual settings or going into the sport boost mode. I think a car's numbers should only be published with ones that it can make all the time. And then I've got no issue with you saying, brackets, but you'll get more in overboost. Now, here we're talking about 10% give or take of both power and torque. But you notice it. Put your foot down in normal, it's fast. Put your foot down with boost engaged, it's warp speed fast. But we've known this for a long time, haven't we? EVs quick in a straight line. In other news, water wet and Sahara Desert sandy. The more impressive thing is that when you show this car a bend, it's actually quite good fun. As with just about every other modern BMW, the steering wheel itself is far too porky. It's awfully squidgy, this thing, and just nasty. Feels like some horrid aftermarket thing someone's had retrimmed about 10 years ago, but this is how they like to do them now, and I don't know why. I'd be lying if I said it had buckets and buckets of steering feel, because it just doesn't. But it does have a nice weighting to it, turns in very keenly, and you do get a vague sense of what the car is doing. These seats are okay, they've got a fair bit of adjustment in them, but don't provide you with masses and masses of support. However, you do find yourself kind of getting into a groove with the thing. Although I'm still not convinced by what BMW call their iconic sounds. That's the artificial synthetic stuff it pumps into the cabin. In comfort mode, it sounds like this. Just normal EV noises. In sport, it sounds like a really, really bad Gran Turismo recording of a BMW Straight 6. But not the nice ones, not like an E46, I'm talking like an F82 M4. Yeah, it's just weird. You can turn it off, but I like it because it gives you a reminder of the speed you're carrying, and you can carry some serious speed in this thing. Visibility also is not too bad. The A-pillar's kind of chunky, but not a terrible offender, and it's not really gotten in my way at all. You can see the bonnet fairly nicely, meaning you can place the car. It hasn't felt overly large, certainly not small, but also not scary. The B-pillar's slightly annoying, it's a bit far forwards, but it's okay. Room in the back is also all right for this class of car. It's about normal. I was concerned with this being an EV that it might be a little bit restricted, but turns out it's okay. And there's a very nice heads-up display too. I have played around with the different settings for the adaptive dampers, and there certainly are differences to be felt between the different modes, but honestly, on the road, comfort is the only one you're ever going to need. And unlike that horrible old Q4, the i4 does have some creature comforts. You've got dual zone climate control, which, okay, everything does now. You don't have double glazing, but road noise in here hasn't been terrible, nor wind noise. I suppose the double glazing wouldn't help road noise, would it? Yeah. Electric windows all round. Should I be discussing that? No, probably not. But some nice materials throughout, not as many as I would like. And yeah, this door, actually, that's not a positive. Allow me to show you what I mean. It's not the noise a BMW door should make. But we do have a nice sunroof, which is lovely. Disc brakes all round, that Audi now consider apparently a luxury. The electric opening boot, that's nice. Okay, the Audi did have that too. And electrically adjustable memory seats, that's nice. And you've got BMW LED headlights, which work very well. They auto dip dim, which shouldn't really be a luxury, should it? But BMW now, in some of their products, certainly in the 540e that I drove recently, that's something you have to activate. Don't think BMW did themselves any favours at all, did they, when they started giving you the option to activate stuff. And in terms of range, charging and the like, it's pretty good. This will take up to a 200 kilowatt charge, fairly decent, and the battery pack is of just over 81 kilowatt hours usable capacity. For the range, I want to share a little trick with you all. I have found that for my usage, the figures from the American EPA tend to be a heck of a lot more accurate than those from the European NEDC. And the EPA claim that this will give you anywhere from about 227 up to about 280 miles. That I can confirm you will really get. It also, over a long journey, seems to do a fairly good job of estimating your remaining range. The first time I picked it up, it had just 201 miles showing from a completely full battery, which was concerning, but I think that's maybe because the car had been driven with some vigour by the last journalist, and after I'd spent a little bit of time on the motorway with it, it improved. And I've got to say, I know it might sound like a small thing, but I've really appreciated having the sunroof too. Something you don't see in a lot of cars. This one is not in the panoramic variety. It's a little bit old-fashioned in its size, but it does open properly, and I like that a lot. In fact, I like the car. But there is just one small problem. This is £83,000, which is an awful lot of money for a car that does look quite a bit like a Kia Stinger. And just in case you are wondering, that price comes from the 71-ish £1,000 base price, plus about 12 grand of options, including the grey paint, the sunroof, a couple of packs, a parking pack, a sport pack, and a few other bits. Most of which, of course, sound like they should be standard, but as is the German way, very few of these things ever are. And it gets worse. As with just about every other electric car out there, the depreciation on these is frankly terrifying. They haven't been out for all that long. Deliveries only starting about 2.5 to 3 years ago, but already an early example of an M50 with, say, 60 to 70,000 miles on the clock, you can get that for just over 25 grand. Meaning that somebody has taken a serious bath on their car. That is a loss across 3 years of more than £15,000 per year. Oh, that hurts a lot. And though I do really enjoy driving it, it doesn't exactly thrill me. I have had a little bit of fun in it, but after I've had my fun, not really felt the need to have any more. It's been an excellent companion to get me from A to B and back again, but never once have I thought to reach for the keys and just go out for a drive. Actually, on the subject of the keys, I did embarrass myself. For the first time in my entire life, I locked the keys in the car. Now, I didn't think this was actually possible, because most cars like this with, keyless entry and everything, they know the key is in them, and they won't let you lock the keys inside the thing. This, I chucked my jacket in the boot because the sun came out, hit the lock button on the boot, and it locked and shut itself. And then I put my hand in my pocket and went, ah. Fortunately, because we live in the future, I was able to call BMW UK and say, hello, it's me. Yeah, I've been a bit silly. I've locked the keys in the car. Can you unlock it, please, from where you are, about 150 miles away? And they said, yes, we can. And they did. Had this been my own car and I had the BMW app, I could have sorted it myself, but it's not, and I didn't. But to do the journeys that I do, it's been really, really good to take into London. This would be fantastic. You can park it, you can use it. Obviously, it's ULEZ exempt, was congestion charge exempt, though that has now changed, and rightly so. EVs don't do anything to ease congestion. They should have no exemption from the charge. But right about now, you might be sat there thinking, hang on a minute, James. At the start of this video, you said that this was a car you liked so much, you'd think about buying one. Doesn't really sound like you're that keen on it. Aha, well, if you recall, I also told you that in order to fully understand this car and its charm, there were two truths you needed to accept, one of which being fairly uncomfortable. I'll start you off with the easy one. Yes, officially, this car, £83,000. But I bet nobody has ever paid full list price for one of these. In fact, today on Auto Trader, all of the new unregistered examples are showing discounts, some of them for about 10 grand. And I bet you phone your BMW dealer, they'll give you an even better deal. They just don't want to advertise it. This is the same for all new EVs, more or less. And of course, I'm not going to buy a new one. I'm not stupid. But at 27 grand, for something like this, it's magnificent. You can still get them from a main dealer. Of course you can. They're new cars. They're still building them, which means you can get it with a factory-backed warranty. So if it does break, it'll be sorted. You can get your cheapy, night rate, Octopus Go electricity, and that's what I'd do. I'd use this car, charge exclusively at home, and do the cheapy EV thing. And if I need to go further than from home, I'd either just stomach the extra or just live with it. I would happily have one of these over a 540i. And I know. Most of you out there would be very surprised at me saying that. But here's the thing. BMW fanboys, they talk about the ultimate driving machine. Here comes the uncomfortable truth. More or less, never was. Yeah, sure, I've driven a few examples over the years which have been absolutely awesome. Most recently, the Z3 M Coupe. Previously, stuff like the E92 M3, E39, M5. But ultimately, those are hotted up versions of ordinary cars. They aren't a sports car from the ground up in the same vein as a 911. And that's okay. I'm at peace with that. This also, it's not an M5, it's an M50. It's an M Lite. It is the electric equivalent to an M340i. And I'd happily have one of these over one of those. And that, for me, is because I have other cars with far more special engines that if I really want to have fun in, will be better for it. But I'll be buying this as a normal, ordinary, daily thing. And I'm at peace with the fact that, yeah, it's very, very good to drive. It's decent and everything, but it's not amazing. That's okay. I can live with that. It's cool. Buy a new one, you're insane. Buy a used one of these. There's a bit of genius to that. And so, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the BMW i4 M50. Quite a pleasant surprise as it happens. So, I want to say a big thank you to BMW UK for lending me a car, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.